Jacksonville Jaguars fans, welcome into Duval Daily presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLugo. Thanks so much for being here. Saturday, September 13th. Big time college football Saturday. Big time game for your Jacksonville Jaguars tomorrow in Cincinnati. Jags versus Bengals, battle of the big cats. I've got bold predictions for this one. I'm excited to get into these. Been thinking about this game a lot, obviously. Really since, well before the season started. I mean, you look at those first two games on the schedule and you start thinking about how things can go. I expected the Jags to beat the Panthers in the months leading up to the season. Bengals was much more of a coin flip in my mind, much more of a difficult call. And we're going to get into that. Really appreciate y'all being here. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. So getting into these bold predictions, I'm going to kind of offer some predictions and talk about why I think some of these things throughout the show here. So excited to do it. Trevor and Brian Thomas Jr. getting back on track. I think that that's paramount for the Jaguars, both in this week and long term. They've got to get it going because Brian Thomas Jr. has the ability, the resume that suggests he should be a top flight wide receiver one. Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr. need to get that chemistry going. I think most days throughout training camp when Brian Thomas Jr. and Trevor Lawrence did not have a great practice together, they usually got back on track the next day. They usually bounced back in a big way. I think that that's going to be a key for the Jaguars in this one, is being able to get that connection going, because if Brian Thomas Jr. is stretching the field and making plays all over the field, that makes it that much easier for you and your offense, and it makes it that much more difficult for the Bengals defense, right? That's got to happen, and I think it will. Both of those guys are too good for it not to happen, and it wasn't all on Trevor last week. It wasn't all on Brian last week. I placed the blame slightly more on Trevor, but Brian had a couple of miscues as well. Dropped a screen pass. There was another one, out route, deep out. He should have caught. He should have brought it in, but Trevor missed him a couple times for sure as well. So those guys need to get it together. I think they will. I also think they'll be able to utilize, Britton Strange in the passing game the way they have, and the running game. And, Travis Hunter will be out there plenty still on the offensive side of the ball, in my opinion, even if he does play a little bit more defense this week. And I think he'll be that kind of chain mover, slot, option route type of guy that he was last week. And I think he should be able to get more than 33 yards on 8 targets. But even though he only had 33 yards, I think he was still effective last week overall. And I think he'll be able to be effective this week too. Jags rushing the ball, I don't think it's going to be as good as last week. I think that the Bengals have a little bit better run defense than what they faced last week. Last week you had two really young guys on the edge. You had Derek Brown coming back from injury, some new pieces in place. The Bengals, I don't think that they're going to be great on the edge defending the run. Demetrius Knight, the rookie, is really kind of a question mark in this game for me, how well he can hold up against a confusing and complex Liam Cohen offense. But I still think the interior of that Bengals defensive line is pretty stout. So I don't think it's going to be as good as it was last week. I mean, you're just also not going to break off a 71-yard run every single game in all likelihood, right? But I still think it'll be strong. I still think it'll be something the Jaguars can lean on a lot in this game. Liam Cohen can deploy such a diverse run game. You're not going to have Tank Bigsby, obviously, but I think you'll see a little bit more Bashal Tutin, a little bit more LeQuint Allen, a lot of Travis Etienne. And this Jaguars offensive line, it's physical now. This is a fast offense. I don't think the Bengals have the guys right now or the coach to keep up with Liam and the skill position guys. So I do have Travis Etienne with another 100-yard game, total yards in this one. I think he's going to have over 100. I think he'll be able to get it's not like he wasn't involved in the passing game at all, but I think they're going to be able to get him the ball in space a little bit in this game and let him eat maybe against Demetrius Knight, maybe against these linebackers as a receiver at times. Trevor Lawrence, I predicted he was going to get the hat trick with touchdowns last week. Did not get that. The Jaguars offense penalties stalled out a couple drives and made them stop short of scoring. But I do have Lawrence doing it this week. I think he's going to need to score. I think the Jaguars offense is going to need to score in this football game. And I think they can. I think they will. I think that, as I mentioned, Trevor and Brian Thomas Jr. get it back going. I think Brian Thomas Jr. gets a touchdown from Trevor. I think Britton Strange gets in the end zone, right? Last week it was Hunter Long at tight end. I think Britton Strange scores this week. He was very heavily utilized in the first drive for the Jaguars offense as a receiver. They didn't hit him much after that. I think that they need to get him involved throughout the game more frequently in this one, and I think they will. So I have Britton Strange scoring in the red zone. I have Brian Thomas Jr. scoring, and I have Trevor running one in. Why do I have him running one in? He scored a lot of rushing touchdowns throughout his career, so he's kind of due for one. But the Bengals, based on what we saw last week, they were a very man-heavy defense. Man coverage, if you got guys running downfield, it sometimes will allow for wide open rushing lanes for the quarterback based on the numbers. And so if that situation pops up, I don't think Trevor's going to hesitate to run it in from 5 yards out, 10 yards out, whatever it is. This is a pretty vanilla defense overall. I wasn't super impressed, quite honestly. Trey Hendrickson is a problem. Shamar Stewart could be a problem eventually. I think Logan Wilson is a good player. I've always liked DJ Turner, Dax Hill, Jordan Battle, but I don't think that these are the types of defenders that match up super well with the Jaguars right now and with Liam Cohen's offense. I think the Jaguars have a lot more talent on offense than the Bengals do on defense, and I think that the Bengals also don't have the coaching defensively to match up with what Liam Cohen and company are bringing on the offensive side of the ball. Again, we've only seen one game of this Al Golden Cincinnati Bengals defense. It was very man-heavy. It wasn't super creative, but Liam Cohen has been grinding. They've been grinding the tape going back to his time at Notre Dame. They've been meeting with Jack Kaiser a good bit to talk about that Notre Dame defense. So I think that they're going to be mentally prepared for this game. I think they're going to be physically prepared for this game. The Bengals, they're used to a tough, physical brand of football in the AFC North. They had to play that way last week against the Browns. And look, the Browns, they didn't put up a lot of points last week, but they moved the ball. I mean, Joe Flacco moved the ball on this defense, and I don't think that they have the talent, the Browns, certainly that compares to the Jaguars offensively. I think that the Jaguars just have so much more skill. I think that they have a better offensive line than the Browns, and I think that they have a much better quarterback and a much better play caller. So, yeah, I think that the Jaguars are going to test this Bengals defense a lot more than the Browns did. And even in saying that, I acknowledge that the Browns did move the ball. They didn't finish a lot. Joe Flacco threw a couple interceptions, but I think that the Jags can really put a hurting on the Bengals defense. Now, the Jaguars defense, it's not going to be nearly as easy going up against Joe Burrow and company as it was last week against Bryce Young and the Panthers. But I do think Anthony Campanile and his guys have a better shot at slowing down the Bengals just a little bit than the Bengals defense does at slowing down the Jaguars. Anthony Campanile kept it really funky last week. I mean, lots of confusing looks. Don't know where pressure is coming from. Sometimes you're not bringing pressure at all. There was a lot of 3 safety looks as well, like Darnell Savage on the field with Dewey Wingard, with Eric Murray. I don't think he's going to be as aggressive this week because Joe Burrow is just really good at picking apart defenses and knowing where the hot read is and taking advantage of aggressive blitzes. But I do think he's still going to try to be very confusing with less blitzing, less pressure, less 5-6 man rushes and more just sem pressures, if I had to guess. And it'll be interesting to see if they have those 3 safety looks out there a lot, because if you have 3 safeties on the field instead of 2 linebackers, that gives you more speed, that gives you more athleticism, more coverage chops, and really more versatility. So if they can do that and still stop the run, I think they're going to, and that can cause some problems. You saw the Jaguars guys breaking on the ball like crazy last week. And it wasn't really even like overly aggressive on the back end defensively pursuing the football in coverage. It was they were making the plays that were there to be made, and they were being aggressive attacking the football in the air. You had Dewey Wingard have a pick six called back. I mean, they should have had 4 turnovers defensively last week. Joe Burrow and the Bengals are not, again, the Carolina Panthers, but I still think the Jaguars defense can be more effective than the Bengals defense in this one. I think the Bengals offense is much more talented right now, or experienced, than the Jaguars. You know, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase is, second best receiver in the league. T. Higgins, best number 2 in the league. The Jags offense has the potential to be there. Brian Thomas Jr., Travis Hunter, Trevor Lawrence. But I think that, right now, just taking the guys on paper, the top 3, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, you would definitely take those guys. But the Jags offense is talented, and they are much better coached, in my opinion, than the Bengals offense. To me, Joe Burrow is like the pseudo coach of that team offensively, and he's really good at it. But I think that having Liam Cohen to lean on for Trevor Lawrence is invaluable, and I think Liam Cohen's going to do a really good job in this one against this Bengals defense. But yeah, I think Campanile does just enough to keep Burrow a little on edge. I think Josh Hines-Allen and the guys up front get to push the pocket a lot. I'm going to go with a DeJuan Smoot sack again, because I think that with those games they can run up front, he's going to have an advantage at some point against a Dylan Fairchild or a Orlando Brown on a game up front. I think that Josh Hines-Allen will get a sack as well in this one. They're going to ramp up the sack numbers a little bit. They're not going to go crazy, but they're going to have good pressure again this week. I think the Jaguars are going to be able to jump on them, but the Bengals will fight back. 30-23 final score for me. And that final score is a little closer than the actual game. I think a late score by the Bengals gets it a little closer. Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, they're scary, but I still think the Bengals defense is pretty bad. So I think the Jags take advantage of that. I think the Jags limit their offensive penalties a little bit, their mistakes, drops, missed throws, unforced errors with penalties. I think the Jaguars are just a better overall team personnel-wise when you factor in the defense and the offense. And then coaching-wise, I think that they're much stronger. I think that they have better vibes right now. I also think they just have less weaknesses. The Bengals have some clear weaknesses. I think that their offensive line can be problematic right now. You have 2 guys on the left side that I think the Jaguars can take advantage of. You have Dalton Risner in there at right guard, who I don't think is like a problem, but he wasn't a starter going into the season for them, right? They have an injury there. I think Cam Taylor-Britt has been struggling for a long time, and that can help Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr. get it going as well. They've got 2 rookies playing a lot of snaps defensively. I think Liam Cohen can take advantage of that as well. So I've got the Jags 30-23. I think they're the better coach team. I think they're the better overall team right now, and more complete on both sides of the ball. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. Very excited for this one. And if you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. Y'all have a good one.